Now, there's been a lot of outrage on social media from the supposed educated left, as they expose just because they're college educated doesn't mean that they have two brain cells to rub together. They keep saying, oh, there was nothing in the budget about no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security for seniors. But that's because this bill isn't meant to include those specifics. This bill talks about broad dollar amounts in terms of spending and expenses. This bill simply approved $4.5 trillion of tax cuts. The subsequent bills will talk about where that $4.5 trillion of tax cuts comes from. It'll come from extending the Trump tax cuts. It'll come from no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. But the liberal media just wants to fearmonger to tell them, oh, look, the Republicans lied. See, those things aren't in here. But they want to say, oh, the Republicans, they're going to cut the Medicaid, cut the Social Security, cut the Medicare, but conveniently leave out that this bill didn't mention cutting those things anywhere. Now let's move on to Trump's third win in the last 24 hours, which is him striking a $500 billion mineral rights deal with Ukraine.
Biden was throwing money around like it's cotton candy, and it's a very big deal. Look, it could be $1 trillion deal, it could be whatever, but it's rare earths and other things. And look, we're spending hundreds of billions of dollars on Ukraine and Russia fighting a war that should have never, ever happened. That's a war that would have never happened if I were president. And it didn't happen for 4 years. People say, how do we know that it didn't happen for 4 years? Would have never happened. And nevertheless, this guy went into this situation and he spent money like nobody's ever seen, $350 billion. The other thing that we don't like is that Europe has spent $100 billion. We've spent $350 billion. Europe gets their money back because they spent it in the form of a loan, and we just gave them, whether it's 300 or 350 billion, nobody really knows. They can't even tell me the answer to that, but it means probably more than that. So what we're doing is now we're saying, look, we want to be secured. We want to get that money back. We're helping a country through a very, very big problem, a problem like very few people have had. Shouldn't have had this problem because it shouldn't have happened, but it did happen. So we have to straighten it out. But the American taxpayer now is going to get their money back plus.
Now, this is another thing the Democrats were saying was never going to happen. It was impossible. But if they want to keep doubting the negotiation skills of President Trump and keep getting proved wrong every time they open their mouths in public, so be it. Let them continue. But President Zelensky of Ukraine will be at the White House tomorrow to finalize and sign this agreement, which will allow America to recoup the $200 billion we've sent to Ukraine, decrease our reliance on China for rare earth minerals, establish a presence in Ukraine, which will act as a security deterrent against Russia, and bring this endless war closer to an end.